Hello dear students, once again I am back with my lecture on Elaine Showalter. As you know that I am dealing with feminist criticism in the wilderness, and in my previous lecture I was dealing with the term feminist critique. You are already explained this idea that Showalter has established women in literature in two different modes, that is known as feminist critique and gynocritiques. Feminist critiques, that means rereading of the canonical text from the perspective of women, and in the process of tracing out this whole journey of the feminist critique, Showalter says that what has been the role of feminist criticism or of feminist critiques, how complex portrayals were done by male writers in their novels, in their writings, and how complex portrayals were ignored by feminist critiques. This is also pointed out by Elaine Showalter. So you saw that in this point feminist critique I exemplified. That means the examples which come like Simone de Beauvoir, Kate Millett, Judith Fetterly, Annette Colodini, and I discussed till Judith Fetterly, and little bit I talked about Annette Colodini, and one more name I mentioned there, it was of Adrienne Rich. So I continue today from Adrienne Rich, that is under feminist critique. Just as you know that feminist critique is a process of reading in which there is exposition of misogyny and gap and misconception existing in terms of female characterization by male writers. So these writers, they were time and again revising, and they were time and again trying to correct male writers by abusing them and by showing a kind of mirror to them that what have you done with women characters. So in this process, Adrienne Rich says that the process of feminist reading, it is very invigorating, enthusiastic and intellectually liberating act. So as per Adrienne Rich, the process of reading is ultimately an intellectually liberating act to a female reader. This very line I am stating on the basis of the paragraph that is quoted by Elaine Showalter in her Feminist Criticism in the Wilderness from Adrienne Rich. So once again we have a critique in the name of Adrienne Rich, who is talking about the reading as a joyous act. But what happened, Showalter, she carefully traces all the tenets of feminist criticism, and then she says that in essence feminist criticism is nothing but a mode of interpretation. That means the mode of interpretation, that means it is never ever going to stop, and it is a kind of joyous act. So undoubtedly, if you look at the act of reading, it is joyous, it is enthusiastic, it is invigorating. But at the same time, the problem that Showalter has already chalked out, or the necessity of establishing coherent feminist theory with which she started her article, that problem is not going to be resolved here with all these processes of reading which these feminist critiques have shared in their way, and of course in their terminology and in their way of dealing, they are different to each other. So Showalter says that at the end of the day, the problem with the feminist critique is what, that it is eclectic in nature. So you know, eclecticism, that means style, theory, ideology, it is diverse in nature, and something which is diverse in nature, how it can be coherent. So the problem is the problem of eclecticism. Problem is that these feminist readers have again adopted, or they have appropriated the models of reading which were available to them by male critics and male writers. So the question is that why to universalize the theories and opinions which are available to you from the past, from your tradition. And of course tradition means, you know, that it is of male. That means men were holding the central position in our tradition of writing. So in the same way, when you look at the Colodini, Colodini talks that reading can never be accurate. The phenomenon of reading, process of reading can never be accurate, rather it occurs diversely. And if it occurs diversely, then definitely the same passages and the same text can be studied, or it can be decoded from very many angles. So this encoding and decoding, it is a kind of, again, strategy adopted by Annette Colodini, through which she declares the stance of a feminist reader should be pluralistic in nature. And if it is pluralistic in nature, then once again that necessity which Showalter has recognized of establishing coherent theoretical stance of feminist criticism, it will be failed here. So she throws light on Simone de Beauvoir. She has talked about also Mary Hillman. She has talked about Kate Millett. She has talked about Adrienne Rich, Judith Fetterly, Annette Kolodeni. And after discussing all these feminist critiques, she says that they have done in their writing just the reading of male text, and by revising, correcting, modifying, supplementing, rereading, what new they are doing actually. The question is that what are you doing new to the world of feminist criticism? So in this way, feminist criticism is not progressing, rather a kind of theoretical impasse. I explained this term theoretical impasse in terms of Derrida also, where I referred aporia. So theoretical impasse, that means where you do not have theoretical progression or further growth idea wise. So dear students, if you just closely analyze all the ideas from Beauvoir to Annette Kolodeni, all are reading theories. All are the reading theories, and in all the reading processes, these writers have taken text of whom? These writers have taken text of the male writers. So the point is that when you look at the ever-altering tradition of the feminist readers, it means that they are involved in the process of correction, modification, supplementation. So all the readings, either it is from the French world, American world, or from the British world, any form of feminist criticism you take, they are revisionist. They are just doing revision, and by this revision you are not going to have solution of your problem. So this very thing is not satisfactory. It is declared as a mode of reading. And why these feminist critiques? They are adopting male model like Freud, Lacan, Bloom, Marx. So they kept on accepting one or another model of reading, and this is not at all solution. So Showalter rejects this feminist critique and she comes up with gynocritiques. Let me tell you that this task which she took for herself to define or to declare the gynocritical mode of writing or gynocritical mode of reading, it was a very, very dangerous act, because very thin line lies in being a theorist and in being an essentialist, especially when your theory of writing is dependent upon your biology. So the moment Elaine Showalter, she started defining feminist criticism on the basis of the male and female differences, many writers, Patricia May Speckes and Ellen Sixo and many such writers, they warned Elaine Showalter that you can be called an essentialist. Essentialist, that means you are trying to universalize the way male writers have universalized their theories. So the question and the problem that Showalter has raised there in feminist critique, it is that if you are abusing male writers or you are appreciating male writers, just as these feminist critiques have shown that they are not appreciating male writers, rather they are abusing and they are criticizing male writers on the ground of their characterization of women in literature. So Showalter's question is to them that either you are abusing anyone or you are appreciating anyone. The point is that time and again you are reading whom? The question is that time and again to whom you are making again center of your reading. Your center of reading is not the text written by female. Center of reading is the male text again. So either you just abuse someone or you appreciate someone. In both the cases, the bestseller writers are men only, and whatever the ideas and the language and the concept and the suffering and the philosophy, thought process, style of writing, genre of writing invented by women writers, it was never in the limelight, because you know that already male writers, they have denied to read the text by female. And you know about George Mary Vance Eliot and Mrs. Gaskell, that in Victorian era, just as it is a matter of astonishment for any reader, that in Victorian era we have in our history books only 3 to 4 female writers, but if you look at the work written by Elaine Showalter named The Literature of Their Own and by Patricia May Speckes, The Female Imagination, and you come to know that in Victorian era more than 100 women writers were existing at a time, and 3 to 4 writers are only mentioned, female writers, by the male historians, prominent male historians. So these female writers, they were existing, but no one was reading to them because the readership was dominated by men. Readership was dominated by men, and writing process was also dominated by men. So the Showalter's point is that if male, they are having prejudices that women wo kya likhengi, what they will write about domesticity, they are having limited range of experiences, they are going to write about their sexual life, their plot is erotic and neurotic in nature. So there is no such philosophy that they should be studied, and many male writers, they discouraged to women writers that you should not take writing as your profession. So now you may see the problem that as a female reader, as a feminist reader, you are also not reading the text written by women, and you are reading the text in order to abuse the written by male writers. That means in place of criticizing male writing, you should study the text written by female writers. Those writers who are not getting publication on their own name. So adopting the name of the male pseudonym George Mary Vance Eliot, and got another writer got published with Mrs. Gaskell, title with Mrs. Gaskell. So it is whose responsibility and whose duty? Who will throw light on you if you are not paying attention to the writings done by your own sexes? So problem lies here that in both the ways, these feminist critique, CRITIQUE, the names I described, 4, 5, 6 in number, by reading and rereading, they are not providing anything substantial in terms of theoretical growth, because contribution of these feminist critiques are not going to be denied by any writer, not only by Elaine Showalter, but nobody is going to deny the contribution that these feminist critiques have done. But the problem and question is that by reading and rereading of the male text, you do not contribute theoretically in the progression of feminist criticism. So this feminist critique is nothing but a mode of interpretation with this process of supplementation and so on. And if it is mode of interpretation, it is eclectic in nature, and this eclecticism is of diverse nature. So the problem of solving the coherent theoretical stance is again going to fail here. And in this way, you are again making center with your process of reading men. So I end here feminist critique, and the second mode of writing or second mode of reading is the gynocriticism. So Showalter, after carefully tracing the contributions and the process, whole theoretical developments and whole theoretical talks done by the writers come under the category of feminist critique. She talks about gynocritics, which is a typical feminine structure, and typical feminine structure, that means I told you in my previous lecture also that she formulates a genetic model or biological model. And if you believe in this kind of experiences, if you believe in this kind of difference, that means men and women, they are made differently to each other, so they are going to react differently to each other. Their experiences are the source of autonomous writing, so their experiences are automatically from top to bottom different to each other, and it is the source of writing. Let me tell you that before I take gynocriticism in proper order, I would like to throw light on Sigmund Freud, because I cannot deal properly with gynocriticism unless I throw light on Sigmund Freud. So I stop here, and in my next video I will talk about Sigmund Freud. Thank you.